Joining us now, ladies and gentlemen, is the greatest college football coach of all time, superstar on TV.
Legend.
I assume he's about to win some hardware for TV as well. I assume.
You better should.
They're going to be lined up.
I think so, as they should be. Ladies and gentlemen, West Virginia man, college football goat, guy who loves a good meal. Mm-hmm. He will love a good meal. Mm-hmm. Nick Saban, look at this guy.
Yeah.
How you doing, Coach?
All right, Matt.
How you doing?
How we doing today, man?
Okay, so we saw Ohio State beat the hell out of the SEC's Tennessee in freezing cold at home. And I didn't know if that was Tennessee not showing up or Ohio State playing just unbelievable football. So I picked Oregon to beat Ohio State. What a interesting decision that was, because I actually watched the Tennessee-Ohio State game and I saw how dominant they were. And then last night, what they did to Oregon was just all three phases smothering. What did you see from them? And by far the hottest team in football right now in your eyes, clearly?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, though. I think that having teams that had high expectations externally, like we sometimes did at Alabama, creates an anxiety, on your team that, players play tight, they play not to lose. I actually think you hit the nail on the head when you said when they lost the Michigan game, what's the worst thing that could ever happen? Now these guys are just playing free and easy and going out there to play to win. Everybody's making plays. Quarterback's playing better. Everybody's relaxed, playing with confidence. And I actually picked Ohio State because, when I saw the way they played against Tennessee, which was a dominating performance in all three phases, I said, these guys are going to be hard to stop if they continue to play that way. And I thought they would gain that momentum in the playoffs. So I'm in 100% agreement with you in terms of how this team's playing right now and why.
What about that guy right there, Coach? Jeremiah Smith. They threw it to him in triple coverage. They threw it to him when he had six eyes on him. They threw it whenever there was one guy. Chip Kelly clearly said over the last couple of weeks, hey, number 4 is on our team. Let's make sure we're utilizing him. Will Howard's best tag team partner is Jeremiah Smith. Now, granted, they have a run game, so you can't have too much outside the box or Judkins and Henderson will kill you. But this guy's a freak, Coach. And we talked about all the wide receivers that have come out of this Ohio State wide receiver room. This guy might be the best of them all. Can you ride a wide receiver to a national title?
I don't think there's any question about it. When you have a mismatched player like that, Chuck knows this. When you're a coach and you got a go-to guy and they can't guard the guy, from a quarterback standpoint, who makes who better? The receiver make the quarterback better, the quarterback make the receiver better. And when you got a mismatched guy like this, that he's going to make plays in critical situations. We had Julio Jones, back in, 2009 or whatever, and he was that kind of player. And we had lots of first-round draft pick wide receivers, but he was the one guy that you knew if you threw him the ball in a critical situation, he was going to win and he was going to make the play. And I think that's what they got in this guy, number 4.
Okay, he advances, obviously, to the semifinals. Cannot wait to see what Ryan Day and that Ohio State Buckeye team continue to do. Texas also gets a massive win over Arizona State. Now, the first-round byes have proven to be a bit of a detriment for the first half of these teams that didn't play in the first round. Same thing happened with Arizona State. Texas comes out and beats their ass early. They're down big. It was like a baseball score there for a bit with a safety and a field goal for Arizona State. And then in the second half, Arizona State and Cam Scatterbo came alive. This Arizona State team showed fight, represented the Big 12 in a beautiful fashion. Scatterbo even threw a 40-yard touchdown in the entirety of it all. It's just like, what happened with Texas? Are you worried about this, or is this more of a celebration of Cam Scatterbo and what this Arizona State team is?
Well, I think Arizona State, I think psychological disposition is really important in terms of playing in big games. And, these guys talked a lot of smack going into the game. So they had high expectations and they thought they were going to go out there and just dominate this game in the beginning. It didn't happen. They got frustrated. But once they regained their poise in the game, and just became who they were a physical team all year. They ran. Scatterbo's physical guy. Quarterback took advantage of, their ability to run the ball and then make plays down the field, even though they don't have great receivers. But as soon as they became who they are, they competed and really almost, kind of physically kick Texas ass a little bit, in this game. So, and that's why I think it's so important for whoever's playing in these games to be able to stay who you are, control what you can control. You control what you do. The game's always going to be about what we do. Forget about what the other team does. That's technical in terms of how we match the patterns or how we block their fronts. But the rest of it is you got to focus on what you got to do and quit worrying about all this other outside bullshit.
Okay, so let's talk about what you can do. Kicker for Texas is going through it. Tone has a question for you.
Yeah, Coach, I feel like before Will Reichard, you kind of went through this with some kickers. And Texas's kicker, Bert Auburn, he was first team all-conference last season. So it's not like he is a bad kicker, but this year he has kind of hit a cold streak. And then there was a video of Sark, kind of talking to him before that final miss, kind of, giving him a pump-up speech. In that situation, when you've dealt like kickers in the past, I know coaches either have, well, I'm going to talk to him, or I talked to Coach Pagano this morning. He was like, I just tried to stay as far away as possible. What was your mindset dealing with kickers when they were either going through a situation like this or not?
Well, you can verify this with Reese Davis, but when I saw that happening, I said, I never talked to these guys when they had to make a kick.
Yeah, amen.
Doc said the same thing.
Yeah, I agree.
I didn't want them to think it was a different kick than every other kick they had to make, and be so concerned about the outcome of making the kick that they didn't just, kick with confidence and go through their normal rhythm of how they do what they do. I always go back to golf, man. As soon as you think you got to make a shot, you're going to make a bad shot. So you got to be in the right mindset all the time.
As a kicker, I didn't mind him going to talk to him for how long it was and how focused it was. Okay, here's something. But if a coach wants to come up to a kicker and say like, hey, we believe in you, brother, and then just as you're going out there, like, I don't think that's bad. But that was clearly not what his normal pre-kick routine is, right? Like Vinatieri, if there was a timeout, he's going back to the net. He's hitting a ball into the net, and then he's jogging onto the field about the same amount of time that would be a normal kick. So, like, you ice him, did you really know? He's also not staring at the upright. Like, this guy's staring at the side that he's going to kick at the entire time. So I think, like, the pre-kick routine, whether it's Sark talking to him or not, I think was kind of bobbled there. I think that was kind of a mismanaged situation. And normally you'll see guys just try to, okay, you're taking a timeout or whatever. Let's go ahead and get back. And then bang, same kick. Let's go out there and do it. So if he makes that kick, I think people would obviously celebrate the shit out of Sark. But what you said to Reese Davis was the same thing that Darius Butler said as we were watching it on the side. No shot. He's talking to him way too long. Obviously making the moment bigger, which it is. You hit this kick, we move on to college football playoff. But I thought that was interesting. Bert's a good kicker. He's missed a few now, though. There's two yesterday, and they missed one against Michigan. I think he's a good kicker. Going to need to make them going down, especially with how these games are going to get, I think, Coach.
So if you were kicker on our team and I was the coach, I'd be scared to death to talk to you before you kicked. I'd be afraid you'd tell me to go kiss off. So
yeah, well, it depends on how I feel. It depends on how I feel. It depends on how if I just missed one. He just missed one before that, I think, right?
Yeah.
Like he had just missed one.
Yep.
So then you come up. If a coach was to give me like a, hey, all good, ass slap, keep it moving, I think that's A-okay. But doing the full on, that's an interesting moment. Yeah, that's an interesting moment. That's a very interesting moment. Now, speaking of interesting moments, we have one down in New Orleans taking place right now. Chuck has a question for you, Coach.
Yeah, Coach. Based on the horrific and tragic events that happened down there, as a coach, this thing, your team's geared up, you're geared up, everybody's geared up to go play, and all of a sudden you're postponed, for a day, 24 hours, whatever it's going to be. How would you handle that situation?
Well, it reminds me of way back when we got a call on March 13th, and we were in our first day of spring practice, and they said school's closed, COVID's in, season might be off. We don't know when we're going to play. So in the team meeting, first thing I said to the players was, whoever handles this disruption the best is going to have the best chance to be successful. So I don't think anybody has any experience handling a situation like this that involves so much public safety and, how are we going to make the place safe so that we can play and postponing a game. But I do think that same concept works here. Whichever coaching staff can handle this disruption the best with their players and keep them focused on what they need to do and not be concerned about when we played, what time we playing. It's in the day, it's in the night, it's in the parking lot. I mean, I used to tell the players, the field is 53 yards wide and 100 yards deep. So no matter where we play, that's the way it's going to be. And no matter when we play, that's the way it's going to be. So let's stay focused on what we're going to do when we get inside the rectangle and see what happens.
Hey, when you told your team, whoever handles these distractions is going to win, did you guys win or no?
Yeah, we won a national championship. But, hey, we gave them all a scale. We gave them all an Apple Watch. We knew when they were working out. I mean, we got turned in by the NCAA by 52 different teams. But
Shane Gillis was out there saying, you see what this guy... all right. The way you motivate and talk and coach and simplify everything, it makes sense whenever we hear Bill Belichick talk too. It's like... you and he are speaking from the same exact point of view, but you and he also win on a regular basis. Feels like, you got a lot of guys from your camp that are out there trying to do the exact same thing. Today's no different. And this first round has been a problem, or first round bye has been a problem for a lot of teams. Go ahead, Con, man.
Yeah, Coach, after, the first 3 games of the second round, basically every team on the bye has come out slow. And aside from Arizona State, most of them have been gotten absolutely slaughtered during the game. Is there any real way to kind of keep your team hot when you do have this massive, time off? Because it wasn't just, a 1-week bye. Obviously, most of the teams hadn't played since championship weekend. And do you think Kirby did anything different because of the fact that he has dealt with, a little bit of a break before on his national championship runs?
Well, I think there's 2 things that you worry about. First of all is ball security, because the ball handlers haven't been hit, and then how you're going to tackle on defense. Because, when you practice, you don't want to tackle and take people to the ground. So you got to do a good job of trying to thud up and all that type of thing. But my thing was, the first years that I was a head coach at Michigan State, we lost 5 straight bowl games. And I tried to practice the team to the game, if you know what I mean. Carry the momentum of the season all the way to the game. And we got our ass kicked in every one of them. And then when I got to LSU and other places, I said, we're going to treat this like a 1-game season, and we're going to back out from when we play to have 11 practices, 3 or 4 of them camp practices, the rest of them, preparation for the game, and go play the game. And we had a lot more success that way because emotionally, the players didn't have to worry about the game for 3 weeks. But this is different because it used to be in college, everybody had a long time off before they played. So when we had a 4-team playoff, you played December 6th in the SEC championship game, then you played January 1st in the first round of the playoffs. The other team was off too, so there didn't look to have a difference in how people played. But now you got people that are being able to play continuously with, maybe 10 days in between games, and then you got somebody that's been off for 3 weeks. And I do think how you manage that is really, really important. But I'm telling you, you need to go from wherever the game is and take it back like it's a 1-game season and you're getting ready for 1 game, and just have the players work out, condition, do 7-on-7 on their own. Coaches not in their face telling them what to do. I mean, not worrying about the game, not worrying about the game plan, because you can practice too much for a game, and you can lose a lot of fundamentals if you don't practice the right way. And that's why we always had 3 camp practices, just like we're in fall camp.
Do you think Kirby understands that? Like, I feel like Arizona State, Dillingham, he's 31 years old. This is the first time his team showed up for him too. And his speech last year, I think, at the end of the year, how close they were, he said, with everything we're doing behind the scenes, it's almost like what Coach Dan Hurley did with UConn. But obviously UConn goes on to win multiple national championships. But Coach Dillingham over there, he said, we're close. I see everything we're doing behind the scenes. I think we're close. They come out, they do. They put up a fight against Texas, almost win that game, should have won that game. I mean, helmet to helmet. Helmet to helmet, that's game over. That's first down, that game's over. Nonetheless, it's not called. Then you think about what happened with Boise State. They've never been in that situation. This particular Boise State team, never been in that situation before. Oregon, you would think like, okay, Lanning's been around, he's been in it, but they haven't had to deal with it. Kirby has had to deal with this type of thing before. You would think the Georgia team would be ready. How do you feel about this 4 o'clock game? And how do you think Notre Dame takes advantage of maybe Georgia not playing for a while? Are they going to try to do what Chip tried to do to Oregon? I think Chip Kelly knew, hey, if we come out and bomb them early, they're going to be in a whirlwind because they haven't played in a while. Do you think You think Marcus is thinking the same thing for Notre Dame, or how do you think this thing goes early?
I think Georgia, because of the experience they have playing in these games, and they've had to play games, playoff games, lots of playoff games where they had a significant amount of time off. I think Kirby's got a lot of experience managing, that situation, probably do it fairly similar to the way we did it. So you never know if time off is a good thing, just like bye weeks. People talk about bye weeks during the season as being a good thing. Sometimes they're a good thing, sometimes they're a bad thing. When your team has good momentum, you just want to keep playing and roll on. If your team's beat up and hurt and tired, you want to have time off to get them to rest and recover. But I think every one of those things is circumstantial. And I think in Georgia case, they had a lot of guys injured, toward the end of the season. So they probably will benefit from having some time off, actually.
I'm excited to see what Notre Dame tries to do early, because they had that 98-yard touchdown run in the first quarter against Indiana, which set the tone for it, basically. Now, Indiana was able to tighten it up. They were able to tighten it up. 27-17 is that game. But, they're very focused on the run. You would think that physical could maybe beat down Georgia if they're trying to find their bearings yet again. But to your point, Georgia knows that they're going to run the ball. So Kirby's had a few weeks here now knowing that the run's coming, and I think that I'm excited for this game at 4 o'clock. Yeah. I think we got another really good one on our hands, and obviously it being delayed another day helps up. Go ahead.
I think two things for Georgia. Number one, they got to do a good job up front building the fence on these runners and stop the run, which means they got to tackle well. And they can't put all the pressure on the secondary making tackles in space, because that's going to be a problem. And the second thing is can they keep Gunnar Stockton out of long yardage situations where this guy has to make plays? If they can keep him sort of on schedule where the down and distance is in his favor, you don't know if it's a run, a pass, a bootleg, whatever, that's how he'll operate the best. But if they have a lot of self-inflicted wounds and get behind the sticks, then he's probably going to have a tough time, and that's when Notre Dame is going to dial it up on him and give him some looks that he's probably not ready for. And what happened in the Texas game when he threw that bad interception may happen again.
Okay, so if you look at all these teams that have made it already, Quinn Ewers, and they talked about his check on 4th and 13 with the blitz coming and telling he can spin it if he has to. Drew Aller, Penn State, he can spin it if he has to. Will Howard can spin it if he has to. I'm not saying Riley can't spin it, but he hasn't been able to prove it to be able to be a passing quarterback to win. Now, he can run better than all those guys, and what he has on the ground is certainly impeccable. Gunnar, also, the big conversation is hey, he can run in this entire thing. To win it all, are you going to have to be able to spin it? In the NFL, for instance, there's always, the conversation about the drop back passer is dead. The pocket passer is dead. You're going to have to be able to extend plays. You're going to have to be able to run. But at some point during your playoff run, quarterback is going to have to hit a 3rd and 12 ball that is going to have to be right here to extend a drive in the fourth quarter. It's going to show up at some point. You're going to have to be able to spin it. Riley or Gunnar at this point, do you think is the right guy that's going to be able to do that? Because we don't know shit about Gunnar. Does he have that in him? And then Riley, do you think he has that in him as well?
Well, I don't think Riley's a great sort of down the field passer. I think he's a smart guy that'll throw the ball to the right guy and take the check down, take what the defense gives. I don't think he's that guy that's going to drive the ball in there in a critical situation. He does have more experience, so he's probably got a better chance to make the plays than Gunnar. But, nobody knows what Gunnar's going to do. Nobody knows, how he's going to respond to this situation, if he's going to be able to go out there and play with confidence or not. But I think if Georgia wins the game, it's going to be because they're the more physical team. That's going to be the key for them. They're going to have to run the ball. They're going to have to stop the run. They're going to have to win on the line of scrimmage. And I agree with you 100%. It's hard to win in the NFL if you don't have a quarterback. I lived through that several times. All right, in Cleveland, in Miami. I get that. I understand that part of it. And I think that's true in college football to a larger degree, too. So hard to win if the quarterback doesn't play well. And the people around him have to play well so he can play well. And I think that's probably more important for Georgia than ever.
Okay, playing tough, nice Ram truck football.
Hell yeah.
Hey, there was a couple Ram trucks yesterday. Oh, yeah. Ohio State had 3 of them on one drive.
Ransom.
Hey, wait. When he cleared up, hell. I mean, they're thumping people right now, that Ohio State. They're playing free.
Yeah.
Everybody's playing. Caleb Downs, him and Ransom, they're a problem. They are I don't know if they're making their own checks, too, to come down and kind of play in their own ball, or if Knowles is telling them or he's giving them the freedom to do that. They're everywhere. They are everywhere, Ransom and Caleb. It's old school safety play coming out of that Ohio State team.
They're obviously very, very well coached because they were on everything. To your point, there was like no rack, no yak, no nothing. When guys caught the ball, guys, took a handoff, they had multiple bodies around them, and there was no rack or yak, like I said, and they were stapled to the ground.
I could tell you there was a couple times where Caleb was not happy with how quickly the defensive call was getting in because he was then looking to, make his own checks and calls.
Yeah, Caleb obviously going, hold on, let's see. Please, can we wait to see what they want to do? Caleb's a genius, right? Super genius football guy.
Yeah, but he's not a very patient guy, and if you don't get the call in quick, I've got a couple bad looks from him last year based on that, and I wasn't calling the defensive, but he knew I was the guy getting on the defensive caller's ass. So,
hey, can we hurry this thing up around
he wants to know. He wants to know what's the call, what am I supposed to do, what can I look at so I can anticipate what's going to happen in this formation with this motion and all that type of stuff, because he's that kind of player. A lot of guys aren't that kind of player, but he is. But the one thing they're doing a lot of, which is helping these safeties, is they're buzzing these safeties down inside the box a lot more than he did early in the season. And I think that both those safeties are making a lot more plays because of that.
Open field tackling out of those two. Fun to watch, because there's a lot of plays that could have been made last night that ended up being like 3-yard gains. But you break one tackle, you're talking about rack and yak, that's an 8-9-yard gain. Now all of a sudden you're on schedule, you can continue to move. Instead, Caleb sets his feet, outside thigh board, saws it out, gain of 2. He's the one putting the 4 up as opposed to James going, and then Ransom. I didn't know he had it like that. Yeah. I had no idea he had. We're talking about Jeremiah Smith, freshman wide receiver. Caleb's a sophomore. Mm-hmm. Caleb's true sophomore in this entire thing. They're young over there, still playing great. Now, tonight's winner, 4:00 game winner, will take on a Penn State team that is very good. Ty has a question for you, Coach.
Yeah, Coach. So a lot of people talking about Penn State, kind of for the last couple years here. It's been, hey, James Franklin's record against, top 10 teams or top 5 teams. And then a lot of people were bitching about their path to the semifinals now, whatever you want to say about SMU and Boise State, but they've looked, pretty solid. Do you think there's something to them maybe like exercising those demons, and now that they've won 2 games in a row, that it doesn't necessarily matter who the next opponent is? They have the, they actually feel and believe like they can win this whole thing?
Yeah, I actually think that because, and I know Penn State hadn't played the same level of competition in 2 games, although those teams are very good. Their offensive line, though, and those 2 running backs they have, these guys have been able to run the ball effectively in the last few games, very impressively. And then to have a quarterback that can play behind a running game like that with play-action passes and staying out of long yardage situations, I think they're for real. And their defense is playing really well, too. So if you just go on how well teams are playing right now, Penn State and Ohio State are probably playing the best. That doesn't mean they necessarily going to win or that Penn State's going to win, but I do think they're playing extremely well. The quarterback's playing well. They can run the ball well. Look, I was worried about Oregon because you guys saw that film I showed yesterday. They gave up 15 explosive plays to Penn State in the Big Ten championship game. Now, Oregon won, so people never paid a lot of attention to that. And I was really, really concerned if their defense was going to be able to hold up against Ohio State. And obviously, they weren't able to. And it really, really showed. But I think Penn State is playing well on both sides of the ball. And I think they're a very good team. I'm a believer. I was not a believer in Penn State early on. I'm a believer right now.
Yeah, and I think the more I learn about what Penn State is doing behind the scenes, it's like everybody's talking about, Texas has a bunch of money, Oregon has a bunch of money, Ohio State has a bunch of money. Obviously, Michigan has a bunch of money, especially now Larry Ellison becoming a Michigan guy because of his it's like Penn State they're all in right now on trying to win football. They're deep, too. Nobody talks about it because Penn State it's always Ohio State or Michigan in the Big Ten. So Penn State's kind of like the cast aside, like, yeah, they're going to be good, but they're never going to be able to really make it. It's like their athletic director, and he's doing business up there at Penn State, shaking hands, getting everybody to rally. They're spending. They are trying to win it all up there. And Haller, if he was up for the draft I think this year, with how tall he is, the moxie he has, and his arm talent that he has, and he can move.
Yep.
I mean, this draft process would do him very well, I think, if he was to sit down and have these meetings. You're talking about maybe number 1 overall pick in this guy. He's coming back. He's got another year. It's like Penn State's setting themselves up here for the long haul, and allegedly Singleton and Allen, who are both juniors, they're going to be coming back too, allegedly, for the running back. It's like Penn State's setting up here.
You could talk about the teams they played, but both those teams that they played were ranked very high in rushing defense, and they've been like their man-meated over the other two teams. And but they need to get Abdul Carter. He needs to make sure that he is healthy for this one because he is absurd.
That was a first quarter situation, right? You ended up on the bike in that
Being on the field for that game, like TV doesn't give you an appreciation on just how big and physical and athletic a team is. Penn State has got a, like I walked in some stadiums, like when we went to go play Pittsburgh one year, and Coach, we were going through warm-ups. You know, sometimes you look at the other team just going through warm-ups. We're in freaking trouble today. They look so much bigger and better than us and more physical and more athletic. Like, and give Boise credit, they had a hell of a season. But that Penn State team, I mean, that tight end, Tyler Warren, he's like 6'9" and 357 pounds.
Well,
this
Coach,
guy is an athlete, man. They are a good-looking team.
To what you just said, though, Coach, like I think that's whenever you have the alumni and boosters, that's how you get those guys. You know, like Tomlin told Chase Young, he said, hey, I ain't never going to lose enough games to get guys that look like you. In college, to get guys that look like that, you're going to have to be active. And Penn State certainly is. They talk about behind Warren, there's a freshman who is
the whole team looked like that.
Good
he
for
got
them.
the same hair. He got great hair, too.
You know, that was kind of my argument, Pat, about, you know, the committee going to watch some games, because what Chuck just said is really true. When you stand on the sidelines and you look at a team, you see how physical they are. That goes a long way in football. You know, Parcells used to say, the heavyweights don't fight the lightweights in boxing for a reason. It has nothing to do with skill. If they have equal skill, the 139-pound guy is not going to beat the 215-pound guy. All right, so that's why we always had big physical teams. That's what we recruited. That's what we look for. Belichick's the same way. Now, they got to be players, don't get me wrong, but little guys have a hard time beating big guys.
Yeah, and that's how football is always going to be. And that's why it's a beautiful game, beautiful sport. Cannot wait to catch today's 4 o'clock Sugar Bowl. Coach, you've had a hell of a season. Can't wait to see you next week down in Miami.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to it, no doubt. But if I was an Oregon fan, I have to say this because this kind of bothers me. And you're the 13-0 number 1 seed, and you got to play Ohio State in the first round.
Yeah.
I'm not an internet guy, but if I was an Oregon fan, I'd be on the internet screaming about that.
Would you be in your basement, your underwear too, doing it? Is that what you're doing? I know you love those internet people.
Yeah, living in my mother's basement.
They are. Miss Terry's basement is a beautiful thing as well. Hey, we appreciate you so much, Coach.
All right, man. You guys have a good one.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Happy New Year.
Happy
See you
New
later.
Year. Ladies and gentlemen, Coach Nick C.
Yeah, Coach.